Welcome back. We're back. We're working on a 1972 C-20 in Avalon Green. Now, I know in the past I called it something else. I was under the impression that it was, I don't know, a forest green. I can't remember. Something. But when I went to the paint shop and got some paint mixed up for the spray and bed liner that we're not doing right now, we'll do that a little later. But this paint come up exact match to Avalon Green. So I'm going to stick with that name now that we have a paint shop name. All right, 72 C-20. I don't know if I mentioned that in a different video, but the C-20 is basically the same as the C-10, other than heavier springs in the back, still coils, and the trailing arms have an extra piece of metal welded to the bottom. If you remember, there are two C channels. I don't know how they're hooked together, to be honest with you. I think they're just riveted together. And that's your rear trailing arm. Well, on the 3/4 ton or the C-20s, they put a heavy piece of strapping underneath it. I don't know, maybe to keep it from pulling apart. Other than that, there's heavier springs in the front. I know the brake lines, they don't, I haven't found anybody that sells a stainless steel kit that's complete for this truck. I believe I do have stainless steel kit for it, but I just bought the half ton and I'll make the changes where necessary. As you remember, they're not really bent perfectly anyway, but that's another story. So today, a lot of stuff going on. I was working last night, thinking of you guys, putting some sound deadener, heat retention, whatever you want to call it, killmat, dynamat. This happens to be killmat. I was putting it in the truck, and I thought, well, I'll bring you guys along for that. I got the seats taken out and tore apart, so I'll give you a quick show on that, and then we'll get to work on the inside. But real quick, we'll do a tour on what's going on. I did mention we're working on seat recovering. I'm just going to kind of play it into the video a little bit here and there. Same as the hood I'm going to show you in a minute. We're not going to make full videos on that. I'll just jump in and do a little bit of work, show you what's going on with it. Those are two things people aren't extremely excited about, but maybe you should be. Nah, I mean, I'm not preaching or nothing, but a lot of these vehicles that people get and they get around and get them on the road, making drivers out of them, not going for show quality, don't even want show quality. But the interiors are always shot. Now, whether it's the new owner neglects it because money, time, effort, whatever the reason is, putting seat covers, proper seat covers on a seat isn't that hard. Take some time. Life's about taking time. Take some time out for yourself, work on your truck. I'll show you how this is going, but it's really quite simple. I'll even show you a couple little tricks on how to do it. Seat covers are not expensive. They make the interior look way better. They make the interior in your butt, your seat, and your ride way better. Clean things up nice. And the longer you drive on a bad seat, the more you tear it up, and we'll show you that too. It's not a big deal. I jumped into this truck, 1972, 52 some years old. Took a little mini impact driver. I think they're 9/16, 8 bolts. One of them didn't just zip right out. I had to go back and forth a few times just to make sure I didn't break it. And that one even came right out. So super easy. I pulled the seat by myself, which you probably shouldn't do. It's heavy, it's awkward, you might scratch something. I will not put it back in by myself. I always get help for that. They come out easy. There we go. Yeah. They recover easy. We're going to bounce on that. Show you all this stuff. So let's start out with taking the seat out. Here we go. When I took the seat out, the first thing I look at are the rails. Fantastic shape. Sure, there's a little bit of rust here and there. Somebody must have left the window down one time in 52 years. It's bound to happen. We've all done it. Come on, be honest. Scrubbed them down with a wire brush. I'm not going nuts on them. I got to blow them off with a little compressed air to make sure there's no dust left on them. And they're going right in the paint booth, which is outside on a upside down trash can. But I'm even going to paint the springs. Why not? I'm going to have to wait for the rails to dry anyway. Not a big deal. This was broke. Nothing you can see today. They use this funny looking notched out piece of metal that is what locks and unlocks the seat into these notches. There's a cable that goes from this eyelet all the way to the other side, and it unlocks that particular janky looking thing. That part that I think's in my garage. I'll have to get it later, but we're not ready for it anyway. That repair I'll show you. There's two ways to do it. Now GM originally used, and this is cool, this truck has it, originally used this very stiff wire. I've been trying to straighten it, but I can't get this last kink out of it. And it's not that important. Well, no, because it wants to rotate. Once you pull it straight, I don't know if you can see this thing. Once you pull it straight, it's not going to matter. But what they've got, pretty neat, nobody does this anymore. What they got here is a spring on this loop, and you basically just pull it down, and you can hook it on the seat mechanism. And it's just a coiled spring, and it goes right back in there. Well, not in my hand very well, but just a neat design you wouldn't see anymore these days. Rather than making that spring bite on there, they would just crimp it, be done, and the next guy working on it would just suffer, because that's how it works. Both ends are still there. Now this is not adjustable like you might think. When you hook this to the seat, if you pull the driver lever and the passenger doesn't unlock, they just put a kink in it. Or sometimes they'll pull it to the seat and put a hog ring through it, and that'll kind of make it shorter, but it'll pull harder. If you have one of these in any vehicle, because GM put them in a lot, and it doesn't work proper because this is stretched or bent up wrong or something, you can use a screen door adjuster. Basically just cut this and loop each end through the screen door adjuster, and you can adjust that longer or shorter, and they work fantastic. I might have to do that. We'll find out later. I said later again, my gracious. So those are going to get painted, a couple coats. It's hot out, so they should dry quick. I'll leave them for a couple days, come back. Now, when you get a seat kit, I'm going to cover on seats for just a minute, and then we'll move along. They have you reuse these reinforcement rods that go through the seat cover. And this is what you hook your hog rings to instead of just the fabric. You go right around the fabric and this metal rod. Well, they don't supply it in the kit, mainly, I'm guessing, for shipping because they're long. And they're not usually bad. But they do get quite rusty. And I don't know that matters. I wouldn't even tell you to bother, but I'm going to spend some time, because that's what I do, get this all cleaned up. Not perfectly. I'm not putting it in a sandblaster, worrying about every little nook and cranny. But get that rust dust off of there, and then I'm going to paint them. I know, that's silly. Nobody in a million years will ever see them. And there's no need to, but it'll make me feel better. It might slide through a little better, but that's the silliness I do. Let's cover hog rings real quick. And then if you're not interested in seats, just, fast forward. I got more stuff coming. But hog rings are interesting. I ordered my first set of hog rings from LMC, and they come in this, at least they did. You know how things change. They come in like a staple pack, kind of cool, except you got to break them off, which isn't fantastic. But if you get them in the bag, which we'll talk about in a minute, that reaching in there and pulling them out and getting two all the time, that ain't fantastic either. But then maybe I'm just too picky. I believe LMC came with the rubber dip cheapy handles. I don't know if you can see this, but they're pretty wobbly. So I'll have to put a punch in here and give that another whack to tighten them up a little bit. But I like them. They actually work quite well. So that's LMC style. I believe I ordered these either Brothers or online. I can't remember. And this kit came with a longer staple, and they're black. I don't know why. They're kind of thin staples, and they came with a cheapy handle, no rubber handle. But again, I don't mind those. They work pretty good. Then on the Amazonian, I ordered these stainless steel, because you know me, I like stainless steel. But these are heavier, so you can get a better bite on them. I'm more concerned with around the driver's seat, where you're just constantly sliding in and out. Maybe a little better hog ring would hold. They're closer to the GM diameter, but GM used the heavier wire. These are not stainless from GM, but they were longer. So my point to all this isn't to bore you with hog rings, but just to tell you there's a variety of styles of hog rings. All of them seem to work pretty good. I kind of like these the best, despite them being hooked together. It's kind of a pain to pop them off. And it's pliers. Oh, pliers. I bought these spring loaded. So when you put the hog ring in there, it'll hold it. You don't have to have both hands all the time. Although my fingers have gotten kind of good at doing that. So it doesn't really bother me putting my pinky in there to hold tension. But it's neat to be spring loaded. Problem with those, even though I spent, I don't know, like 20 bucks on them, is the tips are so heavy. You can't get them in the places you want to all the time. The tips are bumping on things. Again, I don't know how well you can see all this, but where the groove is at, there's way more steel on the end than is necessary. So I might modify these, put them on a grinder, make more of a point to them so I can jam them in around things and get a good pop on them. So anyway, there's hog ring talk. Just if you're going to do it, look around or buy the kit that comes with them. They work pretty good. If you're only doing one set, those are fantastic. All right, enough about hog rings. Got rails covered. What's next? Let's stay on seats for a second. Not go back and forth thing. This is the rear. I shouldn't say rear. It's a truck. This is the back to the truck seat foam, the inner foam behind the seat cover. And obviously there's a driver's side here, and it must have had a tear in it, and you can kind of see this ugliness right here. So they left it. Now I always suggest, if you got a tear in your seat, plan on doing something with it someday. It's a good idea. Just, I don't care, put duct tape over it or whatever. Something to keep your jeans and clothes from eroding the foam, because that'll have to be dealt with later. And now is later for me. There's plenty of videos on how to do that. I'm not going to be a seat cover repair specialist guy. There's plenty of videos out there. I've watched a few. And they'll show you how to cut this out. I've got some foam. You glue some new foam in there and shave it down. The best trick I've seen is using a hacksaw blade. That was clever, because the razor blade's dull and they don't cut that good anyway. So I'll do this repair. I might throw it in the video. I might not. I just don't want the seat having a wrinkly hole there. Surprisingly, there's a little scuff here, but it's so smooth I'm not going to worry about it. Surprisingly, the seat bottom, evidently the gentleman that owned this before me was aware that you will ruin the foam. So he had duct taped this entire area and then sat on it. Well, for the last, I don't know, I've owned this truck like 6 years now. What I did was put a heavy old towel we don't use anymore. I put a towel over it and taped that on top of it. And then I put just, I don't know, Walmart or Meijer or Cheapy, you can get them on Amazon. Just the old-fashioned seat cover. You can do the Mexican blanket thing everybody likes. Pretty cool. Something else to put on here so you don't erode this foam. But it has a little wear in it. Maybe this front's a little, I don't know, it's a little bit eroded, but man, it's pretty smooth. I don't know. I'll worry about that later. I'm going to put an extra backer on it. We'll cover that, and then we're going to jump over to the frame. So what I'm going to do on that particular seat, I bought this stuff right here. Now, again, hard to see on camera, but this is like a carpet, sticks straight up. It's not a loop, like a car carpet, if you will. But the backing is a heavy plastic woven backer. Excuse me, I must have stirred up some dust off of that. But I bought a sheet of that. It's going to go under the foam. Will that stay there? No, yeah, of course not. Under the foam of the front seat. So I'm going to raise that front seat just a skosh. I mean, this isn't very thick. But it's going to even that out a little bit. It's going to, whatever. Stayed up there for the last 2 days. All right, evidently we're not going to talk about that anymore. Let's go over to the seat bottom. In 52 years on the springy seat, I don't even know what they use these days. Last seat I took apart was just foam. They don't use any spring of any kind. This entire spring bottom, hard to see, I know, they got stuff going on. Out of all these springs, top to bottom, I mean, there's a ton of them. There's one broken spring. And it, of course, is right here where you come in, you sit down in the truck, and then you slide your butt over. So this gets a lot of work, and this one spring is broken the corner. And I showed that on another video how to fix that. You generally don't want to weld springs, but if you do, weld it together, and then make that BB. Doesn't matter how it looks, you want it strong. After you get that ball of metal on there, On one side of the spring, weld a line from that repair down the wire on each side. Only on one side of the wire, because you're going to distort and ruin the spring effect because it'll be heat affected, and that changes that dynamic. But on one side, you'll add some strength. You'll still have enough spring on the other side. You don't get it that hot. I don't know, but it works for me. I've welded them that way, and they never break again. Well, so far. All right, the lighting's not good here because my camera's flashing bright and dull. Here's the next thing, and I still got a little of that dust in my nose. Wow. Excuse me. This is the 1968. It doesn't even look like a hood, does it? 68 hood for the bright white. This was originally a teal color. I'll show you in a minute. I don't really feel like moving it, but yeah, I'm not going to. This is straight out of the barn. You can see the water line right there. Goodness me. When you start a video, what do you do when you have to sneeze? And I can't edit with a hoot. So you can see here, there's quite a bit of filler, and that popped out. I don't know. That might be 1/8 of an inch, way more than I want. Got some rust up here where they hit it with a grinder. That's always fun. I don't know why. I've never used a grinder on a hood in my entire life or any body work, but nonetheless, kind of rough. There's a pretty good dent right in the crown on this center high spot rolling to the front, and it fades to nothing. That's like one of the worst places on the hood to have to do body work. Because the dent is so sharp inward that it mushroomed the sides wider. So I will have to probably, I was going to drill a hole and put a screw in there, and I'm not going to. I'm going to weld a bolt on there and then use a slide hammer because I don't have all them fancy body tools. But a slide hammer to pull that dent out. Not that I'm going to get the metal anywhere near right, but it will take that spread out sides and it'll pull it more to the peak where I want it. Then I can do my body work, which there'll probably be some filler in this. I don't know how I'm going to get around it. A lot of sanding to take off at least 90% of what's going on here. And then I'll block it out and see what we got for waviness, because Lord knows there might be some waviness in it too. But the back side of this hood, again, we're not going to spend too much time on the hood. The back side of this hood, somebody took a little bit of care of. I don't pay attention to my planer. That's just what I got leaned on. Somebody painted this because it used to be this tealish blue that's just out of the screen. Yeah, go figure. All right. I don't know what the color they called that aqua blue color. I always thought was really neat back in the 60s. That was the original color of the truck. Somebody's repainted pretty much all of this. And it's not rusty even in the groove. And I'm sure there's a little surface rust here and there. So the plan on this, clean it up real good, scuff it up real good, hand paint all the rusty spots just to get them covered real good. Let that dry, and then because it's pretty darn nice under here, and again, Tom doesn't care, he's not showing this truck off, he likely won't pull the hood for many people anyway. But being that it's pretty decent shape and ain't all rusty and nasty, I would prefer not to use undercoating, because then if you get oil spray or dirt on it, it's difficult to wash. There we go with the flashy camera again. Well, I guess we're moving right along. I'll just probably satin paint that. Okay, maybe we can do some video over here without having camera issues. Not very likely. Let's get you in there. Show you what's going on and get some work done. So I tore the seat out, and I wanted to just quickly show the floor. Now, you can see a little rust in there. Not much. There's some surface rust around the seat brackets. I don't know, some in there for some reason. I wire brushed it, I blew it out, and then I wiped it down with a claw. It's just the lightest surface rust. So I am going to use killmat. You can see under here, I don't want to rip this. Again, this vinyl is 50 some years old. I say vinyl, it was rubber back then. And it's gotten dry and it's kind of brittle. So I don't want to fold it a lot, but the paint underneath that is original, looks great. So rather than repaint it, thinking that that's going to, help protect it, which it would, the killmat is a tar back. And you know how much I like tar. And once you apply this, after a couple of heat cycles for sure, That's going to soak into everything and it can't rust. Two ways. It doesn't allow moisture in, it doesn't allow oxygen in. Those are two of your major ingredients necessary for rust. We're going to block that out. Once I get the killmat all down in there, or dynamat, whatever you use, I will likely paint around the edges, clean up, because back in these original quarter panels, believe it or not, on the inside, I'll recoat those just so no moisture from condensation drip. That's where it would pool down in there. Being in their original quarters, which is cab corners, are almost 100% of the time rusted out, and these aren't. I want to protect them inside and out. So there's my plan. Let's get started on these. I'm going to run around the truck real quick. I don't know if it happened today, but probably 9 out of 10 videos, this fantastic microphone gets into a goofy sound, and then it comes back out of it. And it does it almost every time. It's irritating, but you know, what do? Just keep buying more and more and more and more? Maybe someday. So I did the gas tank, and I'm leaving it in there, by the way. It was 99% rust free. Pretty cool. I like them in the truck. That's, you know, you can argue about that if you like. I'm not going to argue with you, though. Get that out of my way. Actually, on my roller, I'm not overly proud of, but hey, it works. So what I got? Yeah, I'm an old guy. I should have brought some foam to sit on. I never bought a roller for this stuff. You know, you make do with what you got. So I took a pipe and another pipe that was bigger and welded it onto a piece of metal and a handle. Yeah, I made that. It's garbage, but it's a roller. You can use a ratchet, a socket, you know, like an extended socket. Roll it with your hand if you want. And put a screwdriver in it. I just made a tool. It works. How many of these am I going to do? I said that when I made that for the first one. Anyhow, this kill mat we've talked about, but I do like it. Oh, I should have marked. That don't matter. Pretty good stuff. I don't know exactly how I'm going to apply it down here. I didn't really want to go under this rubber, but is that going to matter? No, it ain't going to matter. I just sound deadening. You can hear a little bit probably on the microphone. That's the main purpose. So let's put a little of this in here. Don't forget, you got to have your bolt holes. But I'm not going to cover that one. And I kind of marked the back one with my knife if you look there. Let's go up the back a little bit. You could be as picky with this stuff as you want. And I'm going to tell you, it don't matter. It just don't matter. I think it's kind of fun to lay out. I got some gloves on. Only because this is aluminum. And the more you rub it, the blacker your hands get. And you don't probably really need that aluminum on your hands anyway. I've got some gloves right there on the bench. I'll grab those in a second. So just all I do is rub it till I find that hole. Now I rubbed it in the hole, which kind of sucks, but it isn't that hard to cut this out. You just cut around it and then try it out. Stuff's easy to work with. If you throw it out on the floor like I just did, you'll step on it here in a minute. And it'll be on your shoe and you'll track it around the shop. I know better. We didn't cover our front hole, so there it is. A couple rolls of this, kind of loud. But well, I don't have no dirt. There was a couple like weld splatters under here. But they're original weld splatters, so I left them. I'm just kidding. But I did leave them. This stuff's great. It's not terribly expensive. It works really good. I actually got, oh, that was loud. I have to oil that. I actually have a story. You guys want to keep hearing that? Wow. You know, I didn't do that until I turned the camera on. Because I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't listen to that. All right, enough about that. I'm going to get my gloves. Get another piece of this. So I put this on the bottom. Underneath on my farm truck. I had a rusty spot. Classic GM crap. And I thought you could see the back of the carpet. I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? It's a farm truck. But I can't leave a hole. So I cleaned it up real good and I put a full patch of this. Oh, I'm still monkeying with it. a full patch of this killmat upside down, sticky side of the truck. And I used this roller and rolled it on there really good, thinking, stick there for a year or two, probably fall off and go down the road on somebody. But, I mean, ain't gonna hurt anything. It's just a small piece of this Dynamat, killmat stuff. And that thing has stuck underneath that truck. It's been like 4 years. I got no more rust. I'm not saying it's a proper repair. I'm just bragging up how well this stuff works. In the heat, it gets parked out in the sun, but it hasn't rusted any more than it was. The hole is covered. I do have mats on the inside, so I'm not continuously soaking the carpet. I have the fancy ones that roll around. You've seen them. You know what they are. A couple of different brands make those. And that has held up really, really good. So, again, if you just need the hack, that's another small piece of a way to get by or make something last. All these vehicles, maybe not this one, but most every vehicle we work on, you have to realize eventually it's going to the junkyard. Perhaps not this one, but it could. But definitely your daily driver, your 2010 or whatever vehicle you're driving these days. You drive it every day to work. You're not taking, most people aren't taking all kinds of time to protect it and undercoat it every year and spray it down and wash it constantly, park it indoors and not drive it on salty days. You get the idea. So if you just need a way to make a vehicle last another couple of years, that killmat sticks pretty good. So enough about that. Usually when I do this, at least I remember a year ago or so, when I did Spanish Gold, this was doing killmat in the vehicles is usually story time for me. I told you guys a story. I didn't oil that, did I? We'll see what happens. Anyhow, I told a story last time, and I don't think I really have a story this time. I got a lot of stories. Don't tell many anymore because I don't have any new friends. And that's the problem with old stories. You can't tell them to old friends because they've already heard it. Let's see if I got one for you. I'll tell you one about my dad. I don't know if I told that one already. Oh well. Then you'll be an old friend and hearing a story twice. This is one of my favorites. It's a little confusing story, but that's what makes it so fun. My mom and dad had went to a garage sale, and they found this cute little Tweety bird stick in the ground in your driveway. And one side of it says hi, and on the back side it says bye. It was kind of neat. It was a thing for a while. So at any rate, they bought one, and I don't know how, but the guy who made it contacted them and said that particular one was his pattern. Now, I don't do a lot of woodworking, but I understand the theory behind patterns. And if you keep making a new item off of your new item, every little flaw you make gets added to the next one. So eventually, whatever you're making doesn't look right. It gets way out of whack. And you just keep your pattern going so you stay as close to that original as possible. So anyway, I've talked too long about that already. Anyhow, when I was young, I always wanted to farm, which I do now. And my dad kind of was into that for the money part and bought some farm equipment and what have you. And made deals and trade stuff. And I can't keep track of what all he did all those years. But I do know that he bought, I'm getting to something, just hang on. He bought at an auction one time it was a bulldozer, a drag. What a drag basically is, farm language, is it's a spring, they call it spring tooth drag. It's got these little round spring teeth on it. And then as you drag it, if they hit a rock or something, they spring around it. And it just levels the field out. That's the long story short. And he had bought this at an auction. And a guy walked up to him and said he hadn't realized it, but that particular one Dad bought didn't have a tongue on it, which is the way you attach it to a tractor. and pull it. It was just this gang of these spring things. And Dad's like, "And so what?" And the guy's like, "Well, that happens to be the exact uh, section I need for mine at home. And I would have bid on it, but I didn't realize it till after you had already won it." He's like, "But can I make you a deal?" Oh, my dad likes deals. I mean, we all like deals, right? And Dad's like, "What?" He goes, "I will bring out a drag for you that already has the tongue on it. So, see, you have the benefit of getting this new drag that already has the tongue on it. You don't have to do the welding and figure it all out. And I get the benefit of getting the proper section to mine." And Dad's like, "That's a good deal." So, lo and behold, I'm home, and some guy shows up at the house. I was still living at home. I was a young man then. I wasn't even a man then. I was a young boy then. 12, 13, 14 years old. And this guy shows up and says, "Hey, I'm here to make a trade." I'm like, "All right." And all he had was, I think he had a pickup truck. I said, "Well, do you have a way to pick it up?" Oh, I should tell you. See, I always run these stories. So Mom was concerned with the guy in his pattern, the special pattern. She didn't want to leave that one out in the rain because he's going to use it for his pattern. So she took it out of the driveway area and put it in the house. So that's why the guy didn't see it when he came in. He's like, "I'm here to make the trade." Well, I didn't know it was the guy making the trade on the pattern Tweety bird that says hi and goodbye. I'm a kid. I'm more concerned with my farm stuff. So I'm telling him, "You got something to lift it with?" And he kind of looked at me funny and was like, "Yeah." I said, "You think it'll fit in your pickup truck?" And he looked at me like, like I was a retard, which I kind of am. And he didn't answer me. And I said, well, let's go get it." And he's like, "Well, where is it at?" Again, remember, this is the guy for the Tweety bird, a little yard ornament. And I'm thinking he's out for this big piece of farm equipment. This is not going well. I said, "Well, it's out in the field." And he says, "Well, now, wait a minute." He was polite till now. He says, "Why is it out in the field?" I'm like, "Well, all we did was drive. We hooked a chain around it because we knew we were going to take it back. And we just drug it around for a while. But I'm sure it didn't hurt it." Again, the guy looked at me kind of funny. So anyway, the good part of the story is he gets in this truck, and I tell him, I said, "Just end of the driveway, turn left, and there's another drive down there. That's where it's at, down there by the barn. And we'll grab it." And he drove down the end of the driveway, and he turned right, and I never seen him again. I don't blame the guy, to be honest with you.